Welcome to the Social Media Church podcast. I'm Neil Smith, joined by one of my favorite people in the world, Aaron Magnuson.
What's
Aaron,
up, everybody?
let's talk
Another
about
week, Nils.
social media in the church.
That's right. There's always something to talk about. 2022,
Always.
always
And,
something to
and
talk
there's
about.
about 500 things to talk about. And you and
That's
I
right.
talk multiple times every week. We've been
That's
talking
right.
for probably an hour before we even hit record because
Yes,
so many
that's
fun
right.
things to talk about in the
That's
land
right.
of
Guys, we're
NFTs and
starting to plan the
TikTok.
conference, the second conference, second annual
Yes,
Social Media Church Conference. We're starting to plan it. So, yeah, we were having a little planning session before this.
2022.
It's going to be
Aaron,
great.
those that aren't that haven't been listening, maybe you're even new to today's podcast. Talk
Yes.
about who you are. You just started a new role to update
Yeah.
everybody on how it's going as in your new role at
That's
Shoreline City.
good. I'm actually glad we're doing this because and I'm gonna come back at you and after I
Yeah.
answer, I'm gonna ask you the same question because this podcast used to have a super dope intro. I think we paid somebody from five. Well, I say we. It wasn't me at the time. Paid somebody from Fiverr, and there was like the really cool intro that like gave a little history on Jay Cranda and then a little history on Nils Smith walking the streets of the New York with his family. Anyways, and I'm wearing my Blazer hat today, so I was even thinking about like, man, Jay and Nils always used to banter about the Spurs and the Lakers. And part of me just feels like we're all in a life stage where ain't nobody got time for that. Well, Jay has time for the Lakers. I'm not going to say that. I don't think Nils and Aaron have time for the Spurs and the Blazers. But yeah, so me, my name is Aaron Magnuson, and I know we have some new listeners. We got some new listeners this past week because I gave one of my new coworkers, Sam, a shout out, and here I am giving him another shout out. And he was kindly going around the office, letting everybody hear how much I talked Sam up. And we're going to get Sam on the podcast here in a couple episodes. But yeah, I work for Shoreline City Church. I have lived in Dallas, Texas now for officially a little over a month. And came from being an online pastor at a church in Southern California. Before that, lived in Oregon, which is why I care about the Blazers, where I'm born and raised. I have a wife, 2 kids, 5 and 3. So that keeps us busy. They're at school today, which is a huge win. So great day to podcast. But yeah, that's me. Love talking about social media church. I started listening to my first week in ministry. First week, Googled social media church. I Googled that, and the social media church podcast popped up. The rest is history. Reached out in the Twitter DMs, and now I get the pleasure of co-hosting. And I'm like best friends with Nils Smith, the guy that introduced me and ushered me into social media my first week in ministry before we even met. So it was destined to be. But Nils, tell quickly update the audience for our new listeners. Who the heck are you, and why did I Google social media church and find your podcast?
Oh man. I often joke that my family keeps waiting for me to get a grown-up job, so that they can like proudly tell people what I do because people are always like, what do Katie and Nils like do for work? Like he's a like I was a social media pastor for like a decade,
That's
and
what
then
they called it because
that was
because
like
Nils. When was that? Let everyone know why online pastor wasn't a thing yet.
yeah. I mean, this was like there was no Instagram. There was Facebook, early Facebook. This was probably 12, 13 years ago. I became social media pastor at Community Bible
Yep.
Church in San Antonio. And it was just like people are like, you just play on Facebook all day? Like what do you do? And we bought onlinechurch.com and kind of built a church on the
Yep.
World Wide Web. And then I became a consultant, like helping people do the crazy things that I did on the internet.
Yes.
And now I'm getting into like Web3, Metaverse, cryptocurrency. And I think my family might be more proud to just tell people I'm a drug dealer because that would be easier to explain than
Yes.
he's helping churches get into cryptocurrency and the metaverse. So basically, like illegal operations or something. I don't know.
Yes. Exactly. You could be the Roosevelt Island kingpin.
Yes, yes. I will tell Aaron. One of the things. So I do a lot of things,
Yeah.
and I'm a bit scattered as an
Yes.
entrepreneur. A lot of people know what I do at Dunham and Company. We consult with a lot of Christian ministries all over the
Mm-hmm.
world, and it's a thrill getting to do what I do with them. But one of the things I do is I have a agency called Amplify Social Media, and we run
Yes.
social media for a lot of ministries, and that's actually how Shoreline City and we got
That's right.
connected to Shoreline
That's
City,
how we got connected.
and you and I have worked together through Amplify for a while, and so
Yep.
for those that don't, I don't talk about Amplify a whole lot, and we honestly everything has been word of
Yeah,
mouth
this is
for
good,
Amplify.
Nils. This is good. I didn't know this was going to go here, but I forgot. Like we do need to talk about this more.
I
We need to
I
talk
didn't
about
plan on it,
Amplify.
but I was just like, you know what? Let's talk about Amplify. But
Yeah.
but Amplify is so it's we help a dozen or so ministries run their social media.
That's right.
We have a very intentional, slow process of we don't onboard more than one new ministry a month. We have made a commitment to not onboard any so far this year, just
Yes.
because of the state of our team and size and their intentionality.
Yep.
But my team did just give me the green light to. They said we can take on a new ministry in March or April if we
There you
want
go.
to
Reach
add
out to
one.
us. You might
So
be
if you
you
go to
might be the lucky winner.
amplifysocial.media, you can. I think we have an application on there. We typically work with like medium sized churches, so we don't generally. I think there's just a something with scale that smaller churches under. I would say our smallest church is maybe 150. But we also typically aren't working with mega churches either, and so we're
Right.
working with a lot of mid-size churches, and we're so grateful. But churches that are serious about maximizing social media, investing in social
That's right.
media, and having a significant impact online, and we just come alongside their teams and augment their internal teams, whether that's a team of two or three or a team of 20 or 30. So yes, that's a little plug for Amplify if anyone is interested.
That's right.
It is a real partnership. We have had the privilege
Oh,
of picking and choosing who we work with and partner
that's
with,
right.
and we work with Pete Scazzaro and Emotional Other
Yep.
Discipleship and Life Without Limbs, and
Yep.
some incredible ministries, Perfecting Faith Church,
Incredible
Diane Clark
ministries. The Levin,
here, and
just
Transformation Church, and Shoreline City, and Hope City, and
yes.
some incredible ministries that
That's right.
Cape Cod Church is a new church
Yep.
that we started working with about a year ago, and so grateful for the ministries that we partner with there.
And if
So
you
that's
follow
one of
us
the
on
things that we
Instagram,
do.
sometimes you see us plug their stuff because our
Yeah,
team is intentional about celebrating the teams that we work with and celebrating the cool stuff that they're willing to try out on social media
100%.
and how they're doing it. And yeah, we do have a lot of fun with yeah. I'm glad you said that too. Like this isn't like mega sized churches. I mean, transformation churches in its own bucket, but um,
Yeah,
yeah, this is about churches that are serious that maybe don't have the entirety of their like a role, and so they would rather spend their money on getting a team of people to help them in a more comprehensive way instead of hiring 3 or 4 staff.
yeah,
Or even just focusing on it, and we're really able to take it off of their plate. And yeah, we're it is funny, like it's a family, and all of our partners is just a big family.
it is.
So much so that I think Shoreline City got confused that I didn't work for them, and they just hired me. So
It's still family. It just
yeah, it was
it
such
just
family that they're
swapped.
like, I'm not sure why you don't live in Dallas, Aaron, and I think that you it would just be better if your family was out here. So
Yes.
yeah,
I'm
we do
working
love
on
what we
getting me
do.
some cowboy boots. So
Yeah,
now
we're
now
not
that
doing
you're
that.
texting,
What? Hey, before
yeah.
we talk about what we're actually going to talk about,
Yeah.
what was the thing that you told me that Titus needs to do?
Oh, so my wife was just went to the San Antonio rodeo with her sister, and mutton busting is my favorite thing at the rodeo. So when we lived in Texas, we'd always go to the rodeo once a year. That's when I'd wear my cowboy boots once a year.
Okay,
And I was, in a fraternity in college, you had to have brown cowboy boots
okay,
if you're going to
I
be in a
didn't know that.
fraternity.
Yeah, okay.
And
Thanks for telling us.
that was like that was 20 years ago, and so I don't maybe that's not a thing anymore, but it was then, and I still have them.
Yep.
And so mutton busting is where you basically stick a kid, typically under like 8 years old, on the back of a sheep, and you just let the sheep run until the kid falls off. And so it's basically like bull riding for kids, and it
Yeah.
is hilarious.
Yes.
And so I always was bummed that my kids never got to do it. And so
So now
I'm
you're trying to
hopeful that
relive your dreams through my children, which I'm totally down with. I
totally.
will.
We do have a boy. I
Have you?
dreamed of having a boy too, and I
Okay.
didn't
Oh,
have
there
a
you go.
boy. I love being a girl dad,
Yeah,
but
I don't.
there's just
It's
some
same.
things that.
Yeah, I don't think Brielle would
Yeah,
be interested in that, but Titus for
yeah.
sure. My 3-year-old, yeah, 8-year-old, whatever, under 8. Let's. I don't think there's an age limit. Is there an age limit to your knowledge
I don't know,
of
but
who
but
you
I,
can
but
throw
I,
on there?
there's probably a size limit, and Titus is like twice the size I think of other kids his age, so he's probably
Yeah,
going to push the
he
size
looks
limit.
like an
So
8-year-old, so I
it's the
think we're gonna we're
age
gonna
limit.
pass. That's right.
Yeah,
Yeah, I do,
yeah,
we need to get him on there before. Yeah, that's true. Before he passes the weight limit, because you wouldn't want him breaking the sheep's back.
yeah.
Uh, anyways, we digress.
We
Mutton
digress.
busting. If you never heard of it, I'm gonna YouTube
So
some mutton busting
Well, and
YouTube videos.
I'm sure there will be some mutton busting in the metaverse soon, and so that's my bridge
Right.
into the metaverse. So today's conversation, Aaron, that I brought up,
Yep.
based on an experience I had this week, is Bill
Okay.
Gates made an announcement last week. I say made an announcement in an interview. He made a statement that he believes that in 2 to 3 years, the majority of business meetings will take place in the metaverse. And so it's Bill Gates is generally right in
Yep.
when it comes to technology. There's a video I showed in a presentation I did recently that showed Bill Gates talking to David Letterman about the internet.
Okay.
And David Letterman was like, so you can listen to like sports on this internet. Have you heard of the radio? Like you
Yeah.
can, like get like sports
Right.
facts and like analytics. Have you heard of
Hmm.
newspapers? And he's just like, this is
Right.
ridiculous. We don't need it. Well, Bill Gates was right about the internet. And turns out the World Wide Web is a little more functional than a lot of people realized early on. And
Yes.
he's been right about a lot of things. And he says that we're going to have the majority of our business meetings in the metaverse. So I would love to shift that to say, if that's the case, does that mean that the majority of our church meetings
Right.
will also be in the metaverse? And when I say that, I'm maybe going to say our church small groups,
Right.
because I think that's what translates more than our worship services. That's a
Hmm.
whole different debate that we actually talk about more. But do we think that the majority of church small groups will take place in the metaverse in 2 to 3 years? And yeah, I want to have that debate. See what you think.
Yeah. I
What
mean, Bill
what's your
Gates said it.
immediate thought when you hear that, Aaron?
Bill Gates is right, so we can probably turn this podcast off. I don't know why. I don't know why you and I are doing any talking when Bill Gates. My immediate thought is that I've done that, and it's awesome.
Yeah,
I can't wait for you to share your experience that you had this week. Um, and I'm going to tease our audience. I don't think Nils was wearing pants for this experience, and so I just can't wait for you guys to hear the story that he's going to share. But yeah, I mean, I ran a community group in virtual reality, like
forgot about that.
avatars, like virtual reality. Virtual reality. When you think of the stereotypical Second Life virtual reality, I ran a community group in that the metaverse. I don't know what all
What
falls under
what
the
did you what did
metaverse.
you what did you use? What platform?
Um, we rotated actually. So sometimes we would meet in Rec Room, sometimes we would meet
Yep,
in Alt Space,
yep,
and there's another one that I'm not thinking of right now. But we tested them. But
yeah,
the reality is, we all had. I don't know if all of us had Oculuses. Mine was an Oculus, the one, not the two.
yep,
Um, and yeah, you just, I think we even hopped on a call on Discord, so that we had like a chat open on Discord, so that there wasn't anything funky happening with like, so that we could
interesting.
just, if we were glitching, we could at least hear
Yep,
each other because we were doing that through our phones.
yeah,
Um, and yeah, we would just decide where do we want to meet. And the best, I will say this, confirming what you're saying, the best place we met was in, um, I think it was in Alt Space,
yeah,
but there was like there was like a fire pit set up,
yep,
and all of our avatars just
yep.
sat around the fire pit.
Around the
It was
fire.
dark. You could like look up into the sky and like see the stars and all this stuff. And we had like a super deep, rich, meaningful conversation, like, because it was easy to forget that we weren't all sitting around a fire pit. And
Yes.
something really magical happens. We've seen the commercials for years, right? The old person or even the young person puts on the VR headset and they're like, you can tell that they're like crying, but they're just sitting on like a park bench, or they're just sitting in like their
Yeah,
recliner, and it's like this really
yeah,
emotional experience.
yeah,
Something wild happens to us because we're such visual creatures. when our eyes get tricked.
Yeah.
And it can take you into a different space. And so, yeah, Zoom has been great. I think we all learned that Zoom was great, and you can, when you're on it so much, you can feel like you're just breaking bread around a table together, even though you're not in
Yeah.
the same room. Well, it's that times 10 times 100, and in future iterations of the metaverse, probably times 1,000, where you
Yeah.
really feel like you're together. And we all know that's where the meaningful conversations happen, when you're spending quality time together, but you're not physically present, like proximity wise, location, you're not physically close,
Yep.
but your avatars are. So
Yep.
yeah, I would say I can totally get down with this idea. Taking it a step further from what Bill Gates said, that we will be doing community in the metaverse. And
Mm.
I just think everyone's buying Oculuses. I think we've talked about this a ton, to where when it's mainstream, that'll be the thing.
Yeah. Yeah. I So I'll share my experience this week. I did a
Yes.
presentation for Dunham and Company, and for our clients about Web3 and VR, and I said, you know what, we're not going to do Q&A here. We'll do it in the metaverse, and I'm going to set up an Oculus workspace. I think it's called, or workroom,
Okay.
and you'll all be invited. And with that, people can either join with their avatars, or they can join via video conference into the room. And
Interesting.
so
I
we
did not
sent out
realize this.
the invite to it, and people were able to join. Um, what was interesting, and I was actually able to, even in my, I can basically choose different layouts for my workspace, and it gives you three different images you can change, basically posters on the wall that you can change out. So I branded the room a little bit, and we had, maybe, I don't know, 15, 20 people come on. All of them came on via video conference. None of them joined via avatar. The reason is, two people tried, and it
Okay.
was too cumbersome. Like, they just couldn't
Yes.
figure out how to get in.
Yep.
And a lot of people actually said afterwards that they tried to get on. It was interesting. Several people messaged afterwards, like, we tried to get on via the video conference and we couldn't figure it out. Other people got on and they're like, I can't believe how easy this is. It worked in a browser.
Oh,
So it was like Zoom,
right.
except in a browser, and it was really easy for them to do. But it was also very limiting. And so they
Yes.
they could see me almost like they were video conferencing into my conference room, and my avatar in their
Right.
Zoom window. And then they could see other participants in their, box
Oh,
window.
interesting.
Um,
Interesting. So it would be like, I'm sure the listeners are curious about this, and so am I.
yeah.
So, well, first, were you wearing pants?
I mean, I was wearing
Okay.
shorts, to be clear. I wasn't going
The
fully
avatar
pants.
though, the avatar looked nice. It was
And
wearing
the
pants and a
avatar
suit.
has no pant, like, it has no waist down. Basically, the avatar is like waist up and
So
floats
nobody
around
was
the
wearing
room.
pants in this meeting.
Yeah,
Fantastic.
so
Okay.
in Facebook's metaverse, which is called the Horizons, or
Yes.
Horizon, whatever, whichever one it is, uh, it's a pantsless,
Okay.
it's a waist up environment. It's everyone floats around
Okay.
uh, with just
Okay.
their top half, with their torso.
So this leads into my question then. So that was you in
Yes.
this
Yes.
meeting. For the people that joined via video conferencing, it was like there. I'm. This is a question. Was
Yep.
it like you could? So your character could. You were in the virtual conference
Yep.
room, like all of our churches have conference rooms or a place that we meet.
Yep.
That's where you were. That's what you could see. You
Yep.
had your headset on. So on the wall, there was like a TV, and you saw their faces just like Zoom.
That's right. That's
Okay,
right.
so they didn't join via avatar. Some tried, but
Yep.
weren't able to actually be in there. So when they weren't in there, they were just joining via video. It was like you have a TV on your wall, and they were joining you that way.
Yes.
But what
Yes.
they saw on their screen was a virtual conference room,
Yes.
and they were looking at you.
Yes.
Wow.
Um, and so and then and so basically it's set up like a virtual conference room, where I sit at a conference table, or I can stand at the end of it. And one side is their screen, which is like a monitor with a bunch of little boxes,
Yep.
just like Zoom. And on the other side is a whiteboard that I can literally draw on the whiteboard, or
Do you have to pick
I
up a
can
pen?
use. So yeah, you can. You kind of have a pen that you write with, and then you an eraser and the whole thing, and then but then you can also set. I can set up my computer that I can use my computer with basically a desktop sharing app. So I can literally sit at the desk and have my physical computer in a monitor within the screen that nobody else can see other than me, and I can do things on my computer, but I can also share my computer just like you do in a conference room where you're doing like AirPlay. So I could
Wow.
do AirPlay. So I was able to like put up websites to look at as I was talking and presenting. And then I was able to go to the screen and move around. So it was kind of like a physical environment, a little clunky, but you would get used to it.
Right.
But I'll tell you, 2 to 3 years, I feel like I've been doing video conferencing, working remote for probably 9 years now, 8 years, and that was Skype early on.
Yep.
It has been such a slow process to get people used to video conferencing. To think that in two to three
Yes.
years we're going to now make this leap into majority metaverse meetings, I have a hard time believing that even in the business space. Um, I think it's cool. I think there will be more than there are today, but majority, I just don't. In my most recent experience, the other thing that happened, Aaron, is I had this like physical digital overlap where my maintenance at my apartment, like basically came into my apartment in the middle of my meeting. Were like yelling because they knew I was here because they were doing some construction work, and I had to like take my headset off, address that situation. When I put my headset back on, it had logged me out of the room, which made for an awkward situation for everybody joining because I was the only one in the room, and
Right.
all of a sudden I wasn't there anymore. And so it was I would say it was a disastrous first metaverse meeting for me.
So for all the people that are just wildly confused, hang in there for a
Yeah,
second. Let me draw a parallel to what happened. The version of this, like decades ago, version of this. So
yeah,
what essentially happened to you was, assuming we had video conferencing on dial up, and
yep,
you're leading a meeting, and then your mom comes in like, I need to call grandma.
yep,
I
yep,
need to call her. Emergency. Get
yep,
off the internet.
yes,
Then
yes,
you have to log out, get off the internet so
yep,
mom can make the
yep,
call, and then you hop back on.
yep,
So
yeah,
for all of you, that is what happened.
yep,
Now I do want to poke at this. You feeling like it's not the case for two reasons. One, because like I can see how dial up internet video conferencing, no way. Like you can't even get there, doesn't even make sense, no way. But the minute
yeah,
it switches from dial up internet to like whatever future iterations we had, all of a sudden it makes a little bit more sense. Things function differently. And so where it stands right now, um, yeah, it might be like, yeah, it's clunky. It's a little bit hard to log in. People don't really understand it, all of this and that.
yep,
But what we've seen is it in a day, in a month, in a week, whatever, things could change like that when you switch off of dial up. And then all of a sudden it's like seamless and all these things. So that's kind of my first point. The sub point to that would be, and a question: do you think Bill Gates was referring to everybody wearing headsets and being avatars in the meeting, or do you think he was saying most meetings will be held how you held your meeting, and he's counting that as a virtual meeting?
It's a good question. I would assume he means in with VR headsets and
Everybody's an avatar.
avatars. Now, I what I'm curious about, Aaron, is if everyone were in that meeting as avatars, would that have been a much better experience? Was part of the disconnect being that most were not, and I was the only avatar. Now, I've done some VR experiences with avatars, and I think there's some cool things to it. I also see
Yes.
my kids, and like I was actually having a conversation with them the other day, and they were like, "Yeah, it's kind of like we're in a video game, or it's kind of like we're in Moana, and I was actually telling them like, do you dream in digital, in like you're like
Right.
a character in a video game kind of thing?" And they're like, "Oh yeah, most of the time, they actually dream in digital more than they dream in like
Weird.
it's their
What a great
physical
question.
body in an experience. And
Interesting.
so it's interesting how their world is actually very
Yeah.
digital, like a digital presence is
Right.
a legitimate presence to them.
How would you answer that question? Like if I asked you, how do you dream? I don't think I've ever had a digital dream where
I,
I'm an avatar.
oh, I definitely remember having them as a kid with Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and I would be fighting Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles or something. Like I
That
remember
is
that
amazing.
like legitimately as a kid, but for the most part, I probably haven't had a digital dream in 35 years. And so it is yeah, that's just not where my mind goes. But I also know that like kids' minds think differently
Yeah.
and their
Totally.
world is different than what
All they
mine has
see.
been.
That's right.
And so I do I think I just don't know. And I don't want to be, I'm in my 40s now and I'm like, am I starting to be that
You've turned a
curmudgeon that's
corner.
just like uh
You've turned a corner.
this is
Oh
this is this
no.
is dumb. Like this is just silly.
Everybody.
We're
We
just
gotta help
doing meetings
Nils.
in a video game.
Pray for Nils. Reach out to Nils. It's not over.
It's not over.
You're
Uh,
40.
so I just don't know. Like
Yeah.
but my feelings right now is, and I've been talking VR for like 7 years since the
Yeah.
first time I put a headset on. I'm about VR. I just think that
Right.
it's further away still than two to
Yep.
3 years. I think that's a really optimistic um,
There. Yeah.
scenario.
There would
Now,
have to be
5 to 10 years,
yeah.
maybe, but
Yeah,
I just
there
don't
would
see
have to be a
the real
significant
advantage,
change in
though.
technology,
Yes.
whether that's the hardware or something happens for the internet where like lagging just isn't a thing, bandwidth isn't a
Yep.
thing.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, if you could come up with glasses that you put on that transports your room or your space into something different, yeah, I almost wonder like, is this like, are the VR headsets like people trying to imagine how can a desktop ever be a laptop? You're out of your
Yeah.
mind thinking that this massive ton computer could ever be small enough. I mean, forget that, to sit in your pocket, to sit
Yep.
in your pocket. And so I do wonder, but I don't, to your point, I don't know how far away from that we are. Now, I will
Yep.
say, to be on the other side of the fence of you, if Bill Gates was talking about people joining the meeting, how you did it, easy.
Yep.
2 to 3 years might even be a stretch because I'm
Yeah.
already thinking about, being an online pastor, having a team that's all over the place.
Yep. Yep.
Man, how cool would it be to like have set up these conferencing spaces? Because I also know of conferencing spaces that you can be an avatar on your computer, so that would be more like
Yep.
Second Life. But
Yep.
you're like in a room with people, and you're just not via Zoom. But yeah, I mean, I want to experiment with that. I think at the
Yes.
very least, it's like it's a fun novelty of the harsh reality of like, yeah, we can't break bread together in the same room.
Yes.
But this kind of makes it fun.
I will tell you
Yeah.
what has been most interesting to me, maybe the surprising tech of VR, social VR, that I didn't anticipate being as maybe realistic feeling, is the spatial audio. And so it's
Mm,
interesting to be able to look around like you're in a physical environment, but it's I think what's really interesting is basically you hear people from a certain direction or distance based on where you
yes.
are in correlation
In
to them
in the
in
room,
the
that's right.
virtual
And you get
space.
closer, it gets louder, and further
That's
away,
right.
they die off. Yeah.
And,
Uh-huh.
and so it's not like a level audio for everyone. It is your unique audio based on where you are digitally located, I guess. I would say physically located, but yeah, physically there. But where you are,
We
yeah,
can't even talk about this.
I don't even know the word to
Yeah.
give that, but where you are in that digital space in correlation to others in that space, you have a unique audio experience, and that's pretty interesting. And I think for meetings, that's a unique vibe. I think it'd be interesting of
Hmm.
like worship songs or prayer times or things like that.
Totally.
So we'll see. Well, I'll give it time, but I would say I'm in a state of pessimism
Okay.
for the
You're
near
40.
future.
It's okay.
I think
I'm
niche
30.
opportunity, not a massive
I'm
opportunity.
still, fighting for it. Still on the optimistic side. Okay, you've turned a corner, Nils. I like this, Nils. The world needs this, Nils.
No,
Be
I will not
pessimistic.
become that guy.
State your pessimism.
Maybe it's New York is just getting to me, man. So I've become an old
Yes.
New Yorker, and
Curmudgeon. Yeah.
I blame Jay. This is Jay's fault. Jay
Yeah.
Crandon did this to me. So
Okay. What's your
yeah,
pessimism? How long? Yeah, state it.
yeah. I mean, I would say 5 to 10 years. I mean, I do think I don't know that we'll ever be a majority, to be honest. But I think for it
Mm,
to be mainstream, I think we're still 5 to 10 years away from metaverse meetings being having mass adoption. I just think it's going to be just a slower process than a lot of technologists believe. And who knows? I could be wrong. But I plan on having more meetings in the metaverse. I'm on my third VR headset. Since I got serious about VR, and I have been
wow.
bullish on this technology. I'm a part of a VR company, OVRX,
Okay.
that we created the first VR experience at Museum of the Bible, and I love it. It's powerful, but it's and that we did that like 3 years ago,
Right.
and that was with content that was captured 3 years before that.
Totally.
This is moving slow from my perspective, and I think. But this year, Apple's supposed to be coming out with the AR headset, and we'll see what Google comes
Ooh.
out with, and it's yeah, I think
I
there's
will
just some
say
hardware that's
this:
got to change.
if AR gets good enough, I don't know. Like that's going to slow down VR even more
Yeah,
because an AR world is super cool. And I feel
yeah.
like would you rather? I mean, I'm sitting at my dining room table right now, a little bit echoey. I apologize for all the listeners. You probably noticed that. But like, if you could augment reality, and we've seen this in movies, right? If you can augment reality of people's physical presences at the different tables, and then you're augmented for them at wherever they are, that would almost, I think, at least where I'm at right now, that would be more preferential
Yeah.
than than being in a virtual space with an avatar.
Yeah. Yeah.
Who
Well, man,
knows?
we will see. It's a fun conversation, and we'll keep
It is.
doing it. What
We'll
we'll
keep
probably
having it.
do is, probably, what we need to do, Aaron, as a
Yeah.
part of this year's social media church conference, we need to
Ooh.
have a VR experience. And so
Ooh.
I'm calling it now. We'll incorporate some type of VR experience into the
Okay.
2022 social media church conference.
That's right. And we don't
Uh,
have the dates yet, but it will be in October. So
there you go.
however you need to budget for it, October
Yeah,
is it's coming. It's coming.
we just gave everybody some alpha. So there
There
you
you
go.
go.
There
There
you
you
go.
go.
All right. Well, we'll wrap up this podcast here in this conversation, Aaron. It's always fun. Thanks,
Always fun.
everyone, for listening. We will talk to you again on the next episode.